Good morning and welcome to the craft room. I'm running a little bit late this morning and I apologise for that. It's a bit of a quieter day here in our house, being a long weekend and all the usual Saturday activities have been cancelled for the day, so everyone got to have a good sleep in. Now, before I go too far along, I better make sure we are going live in the right place because we do want people to be able to find us. So, well, I do. I like to have people join me. It's more fun than just sitting here talking to myself. So, oh yes, we look like we're there. That's good news. Always good to start with something going right. What I want to do today is I received a card many years ago and it was a card that I really loved and I held on to it. It was made by another demonstrator. Her name's Nicole Clare. She's part of the family. She's my sister demonstrator at Stamping Up. And I really was inspired by this card and I've kept it and it's one of those ones I go, yeah, that's the type of thing we could make. And I never have tried to make it or recreate it. So today I thought, let's give it a go. And I was inspired to have a little play yesterday, and I think I've come up with something very similar. So I'm going to show you the card in a minute, and we'll go and craft along together, and you can see whether you think I've come up with something similar, and if it looks, almost as good as the original. So let's get down to the desk. Now, if you're joining me, don't forget to say hi. I'd love to know who's joined me today and what the weather's like and how you're going and if you've got something to say about the card I'm making or some ideas, I'd be interested to hear that too. So let's drop you down to the desk, because as you know, this is always could be scary. We get the ceiling, then we get the desk, and it looks pretty scary. But we get there. That's not too bad. We'll just move that up a bit so I make sure I stamp within the desk, in the parameters of the desk and the camera view. Now, I'm going to show you the card. I've got it still wrapped up. I've kept it wrapped up. This is the card we're going to create. I didn't mean you to see it so early, so I'll throw that over there. This is the card. Now, I'll unwrap it. I should have unwrapped it to begin with. Now, it's done lovely with some embossed cardstock in soft sea foam. She's done a watercolour. She's used some coloured vellum there, which I haven't got anything like that at the moment in my stash. But I will come up with something similar and then we'll compare the two. So that's what I'm aiming for, and that's the card that I've always looked at and thought, isn't that lovely? Well, let's see what we can do. So I'll show you the stamp set. Now, this is a completely different stamp set. I don't have this stamp set. I do have some of the colours. I think most of those, not all those colours are still available, but I do have some. So I'm going to use this stamp. And the first thing I'm going to do to create this flower is, as I knock over my water bottle, is I'm going to stamp onto some of our Fluid 100 watercolour paper. I'm going to actually heat emboss, because I don't know if you can see, this has been heat embossed. It's actually on the watercolour fluid paper. She's embossed it in white and then she's watercoloured it. So we're going to do that to start with. So I've got my little kit here. Now, embossing buddies are really good. So we'll just give a good rub over where we're going to stamp. And that takes the static electricity off. And I've got my stamp all mounted ready to go. So let's see how this works out. Get everything. I literally came racing in here this morning. Thank goodness I had everything prepared last night. We did go out last night to a birthday party, Bella's cousin. So we were up for a bit later than we normally are on a Friday. So that's there, and then I'm going to put the embossing powder on. There we go. Now, it's very hard to see. So if I hold it up closer, it's got shadow on it from the camera being in... the camera's blocking the light. Can you see? You can sort of just see it's there. So what I'm going to do is heat emboss it. Now, for those that have never embossed before, don't throw this out. The quickest way to get this back into the jar, I don't want to smudge that because I haven't embossed it yet, is I put the jar on paper because otherwise I get it everywhere. Just a bit of scrap paper and just brush this back into the jar. I had a demonstrator that was throwing it out each time and she said, how come you do so much embossing and when you've got to throw out all that powder and buy more? I said, you don't throw it out, don't throw it out. Put it back in the jar and reuse it. So, little tip, I just use the brush, as you can see, and just get every bit of it back in the jar, even the bit that gets caught there. And then, sometimes a little bit goes everywhere, but that's okay. Now, I put all the embossing stuff aside. And this is when I would bring in my heat tool and I would heat it all up until it sets. At the moment, if I rubbed, we're not going to need this bit, if I rub that little bit down there, it all rubs off. I don't know if you can see that. There's a little few words there and I've just rubbed them off. I'm going to heat this up later. I've already, through the magic of television, that's what they used to say, but basically I've done it and I've heated it up and I've die cut it out. So you should be able to see that lovely little print there on it. So I'm going to bring in my watercolours and I'm just using my aqua painter. And the colours I'm going to use is Blackberry Bliss, Petunia Pop, Wild Wheat, Mossy Meadow, Pecan Pie, and Old Olive. So I'm going to start with my Old Olive. Actually, I'm not doing it that. I'm going to do the Old Olive and the Mossy Meadow. Now, I don't know if you've done watercolouring, but you can see I've done a bit and I've got a fair bit of, I'm going to get a wipe too before we start. And I'll show you. This is just so we can wipe. Now you can see the last colour I did yesterday was pink and a little bit of pink's coming off that brush. So we can squeeze a little bit of water through the brush because that holds water in it. If you haven't seen these aqua painters before, they're fabulous, and that'll just make sure my brush is clean and ready to go. Now you can, to get the ink in there, squeeze them tight like that and the ink from there comes onto there, or I just often do a little bit of this little rub on the corner and bring some ink down. Or as in this case, I actually did some drops out of the refill. Now I'm not going to start with the Mossy Meadow because I want to use that for highlight. So let's get that back off there. And I'm going to colour my leaves to begin with. Now using the aqua brushes, and putting a little bit of water in with your paint, you don't have to squeeze as much. And it's just a lovely, I love watercolouring like this. And it doesn't matter if they don't get the same even amount. Now you will at times may see my head go over because it's very hard to see the white emboss. In fact, I think I've just gone on a petal there. And I must admit, yesterday I had my head right down on top of it when I was doing a little practice run to see if I can recreate this card. So this is a very quick way to colour. I don't know if any of you have done watercolouring. I used to do it quite a bit. Not so much time now that we have a child in our lives, but before child, I would go out with my watercolours onto the farm somewhere and paint a scene. But that's a long time ago. So, just adding colour all over. That one comes right down to there. And as I add the colour, you can see the leaves jumping out. And some of it has like a double edge to it, so I'm just making sure I go around a fair bit. You can make this as wet or as dry as you like. The wetter it is, the longer it takes to dry. But this isn't going to be too bad. Now again, I've got a nut in there, some sort of seed pod that I've got to go around. We've got one more leaf here, and I'm just trying to see where the flower is. I am going to have a close look. There is a flower there, I've just touched onto it. This is the trickier one because I've got to get in between the flower and a seed pod. I think it goes around here. And if I'm not sure, I can always bring in, well, I can bring in the stamp even and put it next to it. And that gives me an idea. If I put this next to it like so, gives me an idea of where I've got to colour. I think that's, yes, that looks better. More like what's over that's on the stamp itself. Once I've put a little bit of colour on, then I can come back and add a bit more. And I'm going to add a little bit of water. Because this is a darker colour, I haven't cleaned the brush. And I'm going to start adding in a bit of a darker patches. And as in nature, not all leaves look exactly the same in colour. So you can add as much or as little as you like, just to give it a bit more dimension. I like to go up the middle vein a bit and then spread it out a bit. I have coloured in part of that seed pod, but that's all right. I can play around with that a bit. Now I'm going to need a bit more of that green. I am going to, this will be tough to see, but there is stems in here. And I'm just going to try and get the stems normally I've got my head right down on top of it, but I don't want you to see the back of my head, so it's not a good look. So we'll just go like this a bit. This has a stem in here. One there. And I think that looks pretty good. Might just put a bit more colour in. And that's just up to you. How much you put on is all very individual. This one looks a bit pale. Considering it would be behind the flowers, it might be a bit darker. Might even put a bit more of that in with it. Okay, so that's our leaves done. And that just, I leave it, it doesn't upset the ink pad part, and it just dries hard there. So for the next watercolouring, I can go ahead and use it again. Now, for my seed pods, I'm using pecan pie and wild wheat. And I find using the two colours, you can blend it a bit more. Now I'm just going to take a little bit, because this is only going to be small. Again, I'm using the image here to help me, since we haven't got dark lines like we would have if I was using a darker colour to emboss with. So I'm just sort of following where those seed pods sit. Oh, I think, I'm not sure if I've got enough green there. We'll have a look once I've done the flower. And this seed pod is here. It's got a bit of green in it, but that doesn't matter. They all blend in together a bit. That's what watercolouring is a bit about. So plenty of colour on these seed pods, because I want them to stand out separate. And then I'm going to bring in some of the pecan pie. It's probably more than what I wanted, so I'll just dab over here and get some of the colour off, and then add a bit of water. That's looking better. We'll make it a bit darker down the bottom side. So, a little bit of colour for our seed pod. Now we're going to clean that up. Again, I'm just giving it a little squeeze so a good drop of water comes through and rubbing it on the wipe. And I've got a clean brush again. And let's get into the flowers. And as I said, I'm using Petunia Pop. And you can see the ink came out a bit fast there. I've got a great big blodge of Blackberry Bliss there. And so it's just a matter, again, going around, picking up where all those petals are. It doesn't have to be perfect with the watercolour. And the watercolour gives you such subtle colours compared to, yeah, I do need a bit more green in there. Now, sometimes I'll wait. You might notice there's a bit of blending of the colours here where they hit each other. So sometimes I do wait until one bit's dry, but it's a bit boring sitting here doing nothing. Well, I could go on with something else, but I'm I'm just going to try and finish this watercolour. I do need a little bit more green because I can see a gap. This is supposed to be a leaf. Yeah. And now I've got some pink. I don't want too much. I'll just take a little bit of the blackberry. And I'm just adding some colour in the centre. That flower isn't quite as good as that one with its lines, but we'll just add dimension with the colour. And that is my watercolour. Part done. So we'll get some of those. I won't be using that one again, but we'll get the rest out of the road. And I do want to clean this, even though it doesn't look like I've stamped anything on it. I might just get another clean wipe out. I want to clean this because I have used the Versa marker on it, and I'm actually going to do a little bit more stamping with it. So we'll put that there to dry. Pardon me, to dry. And the first colour I'm going to stamp is my Mossy Meadow. And I just dab it on here if I've dried it, or my jeans. Give it a dab on the jeans, it's a bit wet in that corner. Now, I'm going to stamp there. So there's our stamp, and there's our flower. I'm going to clean that off, and I'm going to stamp it again using the old olive on a piece of old olive. So this is stamping using the same colour cardstock as the stamp. And I should have had my chamois, but again, it was a race to get in here this morning. Nice to sleep in some days. I'm sure we all have enjoyed a day where you get to sleep in and you just think, oh, I really don't want to get up. But life wouldn't be the same. It's not the same when I come live to you without having done my stamping. Saturday mornings, it's become such a ritual over the years. Couple of years we've been going. And let's get this one and shut this one. If I get my fingers around it. And I'm just going to stamp here. Now that hasn't come out, but I'm actually not using the bottom half. I'm actually only going to use these leaves. So we'll pop that up there and I can clean it again later. So those two I need to cut out their leaves. I might use the edge of this. I did have some watercolour paper here, but I haven't got it. We are going to stamp our sentiment, and today I'm using the sentiment. Where did I put it here? Thinking of You, and that's out of this set, Friends for Life. It's a lovely large Thinking of You. So I'm going to use that stamp today. That's good. And because I haven't embossed this, I'll heated the embossing powder. If I put it all through it, it'll go everywhere. So I'll just give this a little trim so I can then put that sentiment through the embossing, through the Big Shot. Big Shot, that's the old name, the cut and emboss machine. We'll put you over there. So that's got to go through the cut and emboss machine. They're going through the cut and emboss machine. And I'm going to cut this to size because I want this as my card front. So we need 10 centimetres by 2 under, no, we want 2 under 14. So that is 13, 2 under 14 and a half. So that's how I look because I need to count 2 there. But it's 14.3. And I'll just check this. Is this card size? Yes, it is. So we will get the bone folder and we'll just fold it. Ready to make our card. So, pop that out of the road. And I'll bring the cut and emboss machine in. Now, as soon as the cutting plates are on, we'll do the cutting first. Now, to save time and go through less, I'm not using the bottom bit, so I'm just going to cut that off so I can put that there. But I found this die jumps around. It doesn't like sitting still. So a bit of tear and tape. This is just an old piece of tear and tape I've had for a while. I like that it's thin. And so you can see we get this in the right place. And I'm just going to put a piece over there. And get another piece. So it's not actually sitting on my image. I'm using the die to hold it in place and the card stock around it. And I've lost the edge. This is what I'm looking for. So again, just over the point and over to the edge of the cardstock, so it's not sitting on the image itself. And we were going to put this through with it, weren't we? Thinking of you. And I'm using this die. And it's out of this set of dies, which I just love. Anytime you've got a sentiment, you can have a different outside piece. They are the Unbound Love dies. So they're fantastic for all our different sentiments. Now let's just pop this one in too so I can pop them both through. This one will sit for me. Well, it was. It did yesterday, so it's not going to jump around as much. And here we go. So there's our leaves and our sentiment. Now, if I'm really careful, I can use the same bit of tear and tape to cut out this one. Otherwise, I just need to grab a couple more pieces because, again, I want to get this in the right spot. And I've got something new. Remember, I'm always losing dies. I went and got myself one of these nifty. It's one of these, got a big magnet on the bottom, and you pop your die in and jumps sometimes, and it's not going to fall out. And at the end of the day, I've got my dies all in there, and I know I'm not going to lose any. I spent a day like this week looking for the bottom of the shopping cart die that I used last weekend, and managed to find it eventually. And I decided I won't have that again. But what I did lose also that after last weekend was one of the stamps. So that's why I'm not using that stamp set today when I said I would. Because what I was going to do, I can't, because I haven't got the stamp I need. And believe me, I've turned this place inside out. It's not just the stamp, but the block it was on's gone missing too. God knows what happened to that. Now, while I'm busy yakking away, I've left you wondering what I'm doing. I'm going to use this embossing folder. It is called the Distressed Tile 3D embossing folder. So I need plate 1. And I think it's plate 4. Yes, it is. So I'm just going to pop this in here. And you've got, as I've said before, a little line here so you can line it up so it's straight. Always put the folded bit through first. Where did I put plate 4? Here it is. When I do lives like this, I'm just toss things to the side, and you should see how the desk ends up after a live. No wonder I lose things. So let's have a look. We've got that lovely distressed look where not everything's come out perfect, and it looks like that the copper that they have in the old houses on the walls or on the roof, that tin plating. I think it's great. So we're just about ready to put our card together. I'll bring in this, and we're just going to glue there. And then we're going to start working out what goes where. So that's my base. And what I'm going to do, so you can see what I'm doing, I'm taking, as I said, inspiration from Nicole's card. And I've got a different background, but similar. A different coloured cardstock, because we don't have that coloured cardstock anymore, but similar. Now she's got some dark leaves. I'm going to use some dark leaves. And what I'm doing is I'm just going to cut them off. And I'm just going to tidy them up down the bottom here, just in case they get seen. And this one, I'm actually going to cut off down the side of the flower and down into there. And again, I'm just going to trim it nicely. I'm trimming up the side a bit. Got a bit of license on this one because the die actually has moved a little bit off where I wanted it. So, and then I'm going to do the same on this one. So we'll just cut up this side. So we're cutting, I only have one petal that will hide under. That wasn't very nice, bit pointy. And we'll take this top bit too. That sort of looks all right. So I've got 4 leaves. She's got 2, but hers is more involved. I've got the greeting. don't have any vellum or coloured vellum, so I'm going to leave that off. So I'm going to pop this here and I'm going to pop this here. So I want it to fit like so. And again, I'm not exactly the same angle. Nothing is exactly the same. It's my version of this card. So I'll grab my dimensionals. Where I put them, I don't know. Let's grab this lot. There they are. And I'm going to put dimensionals under my greeting and under that piece. And we'll pop some under here. We'll get all this to sit up nicely. I like using a lot of dimensionals. I know. It's just me and my way of doing things. Now, I've got a piece here and a piece here and that leaf there that I just feel we need to do something with. So I put a bit of side piece there. That one can have a side piece on it. So it'll stay up. I think I've gone, can you see that? No, you can't. And one of these half dimensionals on this one. So before we take all those off, let's get this all in the places we want so we can work out where we're going to put our leaves. So that's sort of going to be a little bit on the angle. And let's pop this one here. And I think I'll pop this one here. I like to get the idea of the leaves behind it to help. Well, first of all, it looks like it's all part of the one bush. But it also will help it all stand out a bit more. I'll just pop that one like that. So with the leaves on, let's take these off and put this where it looks like it should go. Now I'm using inspiration for this from someone else's card, but you could use anything as inspiration. A picture, a photo, something you've seen in a magazine or online. You could take the ideas for the colours or for the way it all sits together. I mean, we often do that, don't we, when we're planning a card or thinking about creating a card. We see what other people have come up with. Can't see which ones are on and which ones are off. That's it. So we're sort of getting there. Now, don't have that ribbon, but I like the idea of this ribbon with it. So I'm going to take a piece of this and do a bow. And bows, we start with our loop and wind it round. And You've twisted yourself. Let's get you back. And before you pull it tight, fiddle with it. Yeah, slowly tightening each time till you get it exactly what you want it to look like. And then we'll cut the ends. And I'm going to use a bit of tear and tape to hold it in place. Sometimes I use a dimensional, sometimes tear and tape, but I don't want it too high. It's quite a thick bow as it is, so I'll just get some tear and tape on the back. And it's just going to sit like so. Still looking right. And I'm using different, she's used little pearls. Mine's a bit more rugged. So I'm going to use these, they're the adhesive back swirl dots. And they come in, pecan pie, which I did use, petal pink, and which is what she's used here, and white, or it looks more like this colour, natural fibre. And the watercolour paper isn't as white. If I grab a piece, just a small piece out of my scrap straw, is a little bit more vanilla colour. It's a bit off-white compared to our own white cardstock. It's not quite bad, but it's not exactly white. We'll use up this sheet first. I'll just pop one there. I think I'll pop one over here. And I'm going to pop one in here. Similar positioning, not quite the same. Now, I haven't done the inside of the card today. Let's get all the mess out of the road. These are the two cards. As I said, I haven't done the inside of the card today. This is just a card front. So, which is what we often do with swaps, is we just swap the card front, not the whole card. Inside the card, I could use a bit of this soft seam foam embossed down the bottom, like I often do with the coloured paper, or I could put in a whole sheet of watercolour and just do a little watercolour in the corner, or I could just use some of these leaves. So there's a number of things I can do, but we'll leave that for later, and I'll do it later and won't bore you with that. But give me a thumbs up if you think that I've done a reasonable job to create a card very similar to the one that inspired me. Or do you prefer the one that I've taken the image from or the inspiration from? I'd love to hear what you think. Anyhow, I'm going to turn you back to me. Let's see what we can do here. You don't need the curtain. There we are. Ah, yes, good old curtain. The other side of our craft desks. Actually, it's a really nice view looking out my window, but I have to have the curtain down or you can't see me. It gets so bright and glary in here. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope it gave you some ideas of where you can get some inspiration to create your own cards. You don't have to begin with nothing. You can take someone else's picture or card and use it to inspire you to do something you like. And if you find there's a particular card you do like, why not try to see if you can recreate it in your own version using different. You mightn't be able to have the same stamp sets or exactly the same colours, but you might be able to come up with something fairly close with what you do have. So hopefully you've enjoyed that, and you have a good day today. It looks like it's going to be a cold, wet, long weekend here in Ballarat, so we'll be indoors. I think a bit of crafting and cooking this afternoon with my daughter might be on the cards. You enjoy your long weekend, and I'll be back here next Saturday. Who knows, I might find that stamp and be able to show you the card I was going to make today, but can't. That stamp is gone. I think it's gone for good. I think I'm going to have to end up buying a new one because, believe me, I've never had a craft room this clean and I still can't find it. I put it somewhere safe. I just don't know where that is. All right. Well, you have a good day, and I will catch you next Saturday in the craft room, and we'll come up with something new and different again. Take care. Bye-bye.